More of the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
Mike and the Mad Dog. Sports Radio 66 WFAN. They're talking sports, going at it as hard as they can. It's Mike and the Mad Dog on the Fan. Nothing can get by 'em. Turn it on and try 'em. Mike and the Mad Dog, WFAN.
Good afternoon, everybody! And how are you today? Welcome back into the Zach Gelb Show, right here on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. We have a little fun with the Mike and the Mad Dog radio jingle because tomorrow night will be the 30 for 30. And if you listen to this show, you know how much of an imperative impact the Mike and the Mad Dog radio program and WFAN played in my upbringing and me wanting to become a sports talk show host. And that's where we are right here on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey right now. So without further ado, let's go out to the hotline and welcome in one of the stars of the 30 for 30 that will air tomorrow night on ESPN, and that's the great Christopher Mad Dog Russo. Doggy, appreciate a few minutes. Thanks for the time, and how are you?
Doc, how are you, pal? Okay?
Dog, I'm doing great. It's always fun to talk to you and very excited for the 30 for 30 tomorrow night. And I'll tell you, I have a big smile on my face after hearing that introduction because there were so many times I would try to get out of my class in school and just try to listen to your radio program or play hooky and go into work with my dad. So it definitely brings back some great memories for me.
Obviously, your father was very, very important, folks. If you didn't know that, didn't know Zach's dad, Bob Gelb, was our radio producer for, I think, 9 years. It was close to a decade or the 2 decades we worked together, Mike and I. Bob had worked the show before us, Pete Franklin, and he was at FAN really from the inception, and is a very, very, very good, or was an excellent producer. And he had to deal with both Mike and Chris foibles there for a long period of time, both of us hating each other at various times, and Bob sort of as our springboard and as our sounding board in the process of the relationship. And Bob, Zach's father, is prominently featured in this documentary. And they did a very good job with the documentary. If you, it's an independent project. We might be the subject matter, but it's really in the hands of the director and or the producer who are not affiliated with FAN. They they're not affiliated with ESPN. They go to ESPN with an idea, and ESPN then contracts them out to do the movie. That's the way the 30 for 30s work. They are not ESPN employees, but they did a absolutely superb job. So I think if you like it and you like sports talk, I think you'll get a good sense of the formation of the first sports talk station 24/7 in FAN, and then I think you'll get a little formation of me and Mike's, and that's the theme of it, and they did a heck of a job.
You and Mike had your ups and downs, and that's well documented, and there was a contentious relationship to start because Mike wanted his own show, you wanted your own show. My dad would actually call you guys up and would lie to you on those phone calls just to get you to kind of agree and show up the next day.
Right.
When did you know that this thing was going to work, though?
First off, we had some gags early on. We did a dog date afternoon contest where we got postcards in from single girls. I was not married at the time. We were dating. 25 words or less why you want to have a date with Christopher Russo. And the winner of that card, we picked it out. The winner got a night out on Broadway. We'd go see Cats. Dog would go see Cats. So that kind of sort of softened everybody up some. We had that great run with the football Giants the second year we were in when they beat San Francisco and Montana. And then they went into Buffalo, and they were a 7-point underdog. No week off that year in Tampa, and beat the Bills in what was a great game, 20-19. That was only our second year of sports talk, me, Mike, and myself. So that was a big development. And I think just, on a gradual basis, day after day, week after week, month after month, although we had our issues, no question about it, which this documentary chronicles, I think the common denominator was sports. We both love sports. Mike's a lot funnier than people think. At least at the time, people kind of looked at me, didn't take me maybe as seriously as I would have liked them to as far as knowledge is concerned. Eventually, they realized that I knew what I was talking about. So you put everything together, and the ratings are good. I mean, that's the bottom line. If the ratings are good, everything else is going to fall into play because if you're doing well ratings-wise, well, then obviously, you're not going to hate each other as much if the ratings are pretty good, and the ratings are good. So a variety of things. The Rangers winning the Cup helped. The Yankees winning those four championships, especially the first one in '96 when they came out of nowhere with Torrey. That helped. The '90s. Remember in the '90s, Zach, you had 7 championships in New York City. The Giants won. Giants won a couple with the Patriots. The Yankees won the 4. The Rangers won 1. So Mike and I were part of covering 7 championship teams. Plus the Mets were a disaster. They were a train wreck. And the Knicks had Riley, which was a plus. So, and Rich Kotite coached the Jets. So we had the best of both worlds. We had the bad coaches and the Hall of Famers, and that made for a good talk show after all those years.
You mentioned the perception of you being looked at as the zany guy, the yeller, and the wacky guy, Mike being that all-encompassing host and someone that could never be wrong or would never say that he was wrong. How much of that perception add a little fuel to the fire to make you guys fight sometimes?
Oh, absolutely. I think there was an insecurity aspect of it with me, no question about it. I felt, doing a show with Mike's not that easy. I mean, Mike had done shows with, had worked with Musburger, was on the CBS Sports Trail, had been on the air a little bit with CBS with the NCAA tournament, had worked with CBS since 1982, was a little older than me, had seen sports in a different way. So, and I had come up through sports doing radio in Orlando and Jacksonville, Florida, and WMCA in New York. So there was a sense of insecurity for me. And I think with Mike, he probably felt, well, who is this idiot they paired me with that I somehow got to talk sports every day? I'll show him. So you put those two dynamics together, and obviously at times, especially when you're looking at each other every day for 5 hours, 5.5 hours, that is going to, cause occasional friction, and especially early when I was just trying to get my feet under me, and we were trying to get to know each other a little bit. So we had some issues there that first year or two. Again, Dog Day Afternoon helped. The Giants football team helped because they won. And then Raleigh came in pretty quickly after that. So we had 2 or 3 good things happen. And again, the sports were good in New York, and both Mike and me love sports. That goes a long way.
I remember one time I was watching the show when my dad was a salesperson, and I was watching it in the producer's room. I forget if it was Carlin or Merlusis who was the producer at the time. And I remember I got in the car on my way home, and I said to my dad, hey, why does Mike get up and leave during the break? Or, why don't they talk during the breaks? And I guess that was during one of your fights. So how tough was it to do a show at times when you guys were having that contentious relationship and wouldn't talk to each other? Because it was amazing how at 1 o'clock you guys just flipped the switch and you guys were all good on the air.
Basically. There's a big segment on the documentary about that, so I don't want to give it away. But, it's almost like there were times when we were almost doing 2 separate shows in the same room. Mike said his piece, I said my piece, not a ton of interaction, some calls, the guests, and everything else. There were times that occurred. And, your father would know because he watched it every day. You picked up on it because you sat there. But if you were just driving around the BQE or, listened every day for 40 minutes on the LIE, you may have noticed that there wasn't lovey-dovey, but I don't know if you would have picked up the fact that we both had so many issues. So there were a couple of occasions where it really got, frosty in that room. But, you're professional. It's a show to do. There's sports to talk about. You can figure out a way to get through it. But there were a couple of times there, especially one in 2000, where it was very, very tricky. And it lasted a good couple of months. I'm not sure if your father was still with us at that time or not. I think he probably was. But there were some situations there, Zach, it got difficult. And I thought a couple of times that was the end of it. But, we persevered.
Mad Dog Russo with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Now, it wasn't all bad. You have to have some good memories. And when you last that long and be the most dominant team in sports radio, which you guys were, and you look at some of those memories that I've heard of off away from the microphone, you having a birdie on a hole 8 at Pebble Beach. You guys used to golf a lot together, right?
Yeah, that's a good one. In '93, before the Dallas-Buffalo Super Bowl, the first time they played in Pasadena, Mike and I and your dad flew out to California, and went to Monterey for the weekend. First time I had ever been there. I stayed at the lodge. Matter of fact, a room with your father.
How was that experience?
With the fireplace on, with the 2 beds.
How'd you look at his feet all night?
It wasn't easy, but we did. We did 3 days in Pebble. We played Pebble Beach. I had the 88, and you're right, I birdied 8. We played Spanish Bay, and then we flew down on Sunday night to Monterey, to Pasadena, L.A., to do the Dallas-Buffalo Super Bowl. And that is really the first time. That would have been January of '93. That was the first time that I recognized a Radio Row aspect to a Super Bowl. The first couple that we did, that was our 4th one, I believe. And in the San Francisco-Denver one, we were in the Hyatt lobby. There was nobody there. That was Niners 55-10. The next year was the Giants. So a lot of the fans were there. We were secluded in a different area, so I don't remember that many people going to that. The third one was the Buffalo, Minnesota. It was the third one. I guess that may have been the third one. I think the Washington Buffalo one was the following year. So that may have been the third Super Bowl. The third time. That was the first time I noticed that they put us in a convention room at the Century City Hotel, and there was actually about 10, 12 stations there. And that was the first time that I noticed a Radio Row per se. Right then, that time.
You know, it's unbelievable how many people wanted to be involved with the show, whether it was the callers or if you look at just famous people like A-Rod in that one spring training, or even away from the show. You played tennis with McEnroe. You guys were close with many actors, and little Steven actually attended your bachelor party, which you know. Did it ever shock you how much there were stars that wanted to be a part of the show?
Well, they were sports fans. You know, Gandolfini's another one. He was not really a big sports fan, but he was such a nice guy, and I did a lot of the Sopranos at the Silver Cup Studios, and we used to go down and watch them do their thing, Mike and me. And you'll see that on this thing too. I used to hear that Kevin Spacey listened. I never got that confirmed. I used to hear that Michael Douglas listened all the time. I never got that confirmed. And I never broke that down from a standpoint of who was listening, who wasn't. I mean, I try to treat it just do a talk show and go from there. I noticed impact. You go to a ball game, you go to a Knick game, you go play a WFAN softball game. You could tell that we had there was something going on. And let's not forget that Mattingly-Clark debate in '89. I didn't bring that up, and that is not on the video. That is not a documentary. That was important. That was the summer of '89.
That was one of the first things when I was prepping for this interview, and I asked my dad, I said, give me some of the big fights, and he talked about that Will Clark-Don Mattingly fight.
But that wasn't a fight.
On air.
That was positive.
Yeah, no, sure.
Yeah, I mean, because I love Clark, Mike loved Mattingly. I was a big Giant fan, and obviously we all know about Mike with the Yankees. That was a big deal. So that summer of '89, when we did a lot of we did a lot of softball and played on the 66er softball team. We did a lot of that Mattingly-Clark thing, and people really got into that. So I began to notice that we had a little impact. I did not notice or sense, that we were on top of it. Now, I did do the Bad Lieutenant. I did the voiceover for that. And to this day, I'm shocked the amount of people who tell me that they saw Bad Lieutenant and heard me. I was the talk show host that Harvey Keitel used to listen to all the time. So talking baseball, Mets Dodgers in a fictitious postseason series. But I never really noticed that much, Zach, who was, what big star was listening or what big athlete was paying attention.
I know you got to run as we're talking to Christopher Mad Dog Russo, so I got 2 more for you. Getting back together, and do you at all regret leaving WFAN?
Well, I regret the give and take. You miss that presence where you can throw things off to somebody. And, I had that with Mike. Mike had that with me, and we don't have that without each other, so I do miss that. I do miss the fact that at times Sirius does not have a hometown team. That's the one thing about Sirius that you have to understand when you walk in the door there, that nobody's going to break down Dylan Betances' 8th inning and figure out why he's losing control and walking people. And, you do that on local radio, so you miss a little bit of that. As far as the reunion scenario is concerned, a lot of it's in Mike's hands because, remember, I am contracted to Sirius for a long period of time. Mike isn't at FAN after this coming year. So Mike is going to have a lot of options. He's going to have probably an option to come to Sirius to work with in some capacity, not every day, but in some capacity. I don't think he wants to work every day. He'll have that chance, and we'll see what he decides to do.
And before we let you run, Doggy, because I know you got to go, you take a look back at some of the great memories. The one-time rant, that was Mike getting under your skin after a tough loss for you, and then you got under Mike's skin. 2004 ALCS choke. You constantly also bringing up the John Patterson home run with the Giants back in that September game. You look back at all those memories. Also, your dad played such an imperative role in the show. After all these years, just what does the Mike and the Mad Dog radio program mean to you?
Well, I can cure cancer, Zach. Mike and I have done 3 or 4 things together here in the last year or so. We did the Radio City. We did, we had him at the Super Bowl in Houston, and obviously now you have this. So we've done a lot together, and again, I could cure cancer. I could own radio stations and find the next great Dick Enberg, and nothing to a lot of people is going to top Mike and the Mad Dog. The idea that we were the first guys to kind of do a duet 5.5 hours a day on the first all-sports station, a lot of soap opera quality to it, me leaving. Nothing is going to top that. In my, those 2 decades will not be topped. That's the thing I learned most of all. And I love Sirius. It's a great place, and I would never leave. But the idea that I can't top the FAN experience is something is something I picked up on here in the last couple of weeks.
Well, Dog, I appreciate it as always. Thanks so much. Let's do it again real soon.
Good job there. Appreciate it there, Zach. Keep up the good work.